What's good, y'all? Once again, it's Stuart V for Venom Sports, and we spit that fire. I did a video earlier on the preview of Auburn and Southern Miss. I think that's a pivotal game for the Auburn Tigers as they try to solidify their place as one of college football relevant teams that could possibly make the playoffs. But there's some other teams in the other games in the SEC that I thought of interest. Obviously, Alabama doesn't have much of a challenge this weekend. They should pretty much roll in their game this week. But we look at Georgia and Tennessee. Georgia didn't necessarily have the greatest showing against Missouri. Missouri has one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and Mr. Locke. And he didn't particularly have a good game, but surprisingly, Missouri had a lot of success running the football in between the tackles against Georgia. Now, this is Georgia defense that we expected to be dominant. You know what I'm saying? We expected this defense to be dominant, to say the least. So this is the thing that I'm looking at with Georgia as they come into the game against Tennessee. I think they need to continue to establish their identity on offense because they were still a little hit or miss on the offensive side of the field. They need to figure out who is going to lead the running backs. Is it going to be DeAndre Smith or is it going to be Elijah Holyfield? I think, when you take the two of those running backs, it puts them in a position to where they're going to have to do the Sony Michel, Nick Chubb thing because both of them bring equally opposite things to the table to where you can't do without either one. They have some great receivers that they need to take advantage of, but this has to be the game against Tennessee where they start because we're at week 5. This is the game against Tennessee where they really have to start solidifying themselves as that team, that number 2 team in the SEC that everybody is talking about. Because honestly, I didn't see it last week. When I looked at that boring-ass stadium in Missouri, that did not look like a SEC environment. Even at night, that ain't no intimidating environment up in Missouri. But they did not show themselves as that dominant SEC team that's going to be able to contend with the Alabamas and the Auburns. And shit, they might even struggle with LSU when they go down to Baton Rouge. So they're really going to have to reestablish themselves as that dominant team in the SEC. Now, LSU, y'all are not off the hook, baby. Let me tell you something. Y'all are not off the hook. This Mississippi team, Ole Miss team, can air that thing out. And I'm going to tell you, if you find yourself in a scoring match with Ole Miss, you're in deep trouble because your quarterback just ain't the one. He's not the guy at 44% throwing. He is not the one that's going to lead you to the promised land if you get in a shootout with Ole Miss. So LSU's best bet is to rely on that defensive front and to rely on Greedy Williams back there in the secondary to anchor that secondary so they can get some things solidified early, or else this could be a trail of tears for LSU back to the Bayou locker room. All right. But anyway, once again, my name is Stuart V for Venom Sports, and we spit that fire. Here are the predictions for this week. All right, so I'm looking at LSU squeaking through, easing through that game against Ole Miss. 21-17 and a dogfight in the Bayou, right? Georgia, I think Kirby Smart rallies his troops together, and he starts to solidify this thing before he really hits the stretch of the SEC. Especially leading into Auburn, who I think Auburn is very underrated at this point. Once Auburn gets that offense going, Auburn is going to be a force to reckon with because they do have a championship defense. So here we are, Georgia, I'd say 40-17 over Tennessee. They don't really have any problems per se with Tennessee, but they do have to shore some things up in that particular football game before they start to hit the meat of the SEC East because they still got Florida. Florida's not a bad team this year. They still have to take that daunting trip down to the Bayou, down to the swamps to take on LSU. And then what a lot of people ain't talking about, if Kentucky continues to progress, November could really be a real thick month for Georgia to where they got Auburn and then they got, they got Kentucky coming up. Once again, my name is Stuart V for Venom Sports, and we talk SEC football. You all take care.